guys to an episode with a Doomed Hell. Yes, it has been a while since I've made an episode, and it's not because I've been dead. I've been on my computer pretty much this whole time, doing classes, not really like screwing around or anything. I haven't really screwed around on my computer in a while, but it's actually because I've been interested in, other things, and I haven't really been touching computers very much. But I'm now realizing that you don't want to buy DDR5, and this is going to be a huge issue for a lot of people. A lot of us are waiting for DDR5, and we're kind of hoping that it's going to be, the next great generation, and it's going to be, the platforms we're going to get are going to be so good that we're going to be able to, everyone's going to be able to get their new computers at super cheap prices and have great performance, etc., etc. This is not going to be the reality at all. I'm going to have to lay down some red pills because, people are not really looking at it the right way. So here's the truth. First and foremost, DDR5. They're trying to basically fuck us. They're trying to put as many features as possible on DDR5. So that when DDR5 comes out, we're not going to be looking at it's just regular performance. It's bandwidth, latency, all these kinds of things. And we're not just going to be looking at those numbers. We're going to look at those numbers. We're going to kind of look at them. We're going to be like, my God, they're just incremental. What the fuck? And then we're going to excuse it because they have extra features. And these features are not going to help us overclockers. No, they're not going to help us. They're going to help basically like the 50% of the market which need, ECC or want like really simple voltage controllers voltage regulators on their motherboards. They're just going to be people that want like, mid-range performance and are just hoping that DDR5 just cuts it barely. And that's kind of why they're hitting higher bandwidths while not really caring about latency that much. And yeah, I've read some of the threads on overclock, like r/overclocking and things like that. And okay, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, to be honest, because they just talk about random bullshit. But aside from the trolling, I think we all know this truth. And this is a sad truth because it's a truth that is going to cost us potentially many hundreds of dollars when it comes to our final builds. And this is not the only thing. This is like just the fact that it's a DDR5 platform, like face off. That part only is going to cost us a couple hundreds on our builds. Then we have to add up other facts. So this is the other fact. The other facts. The first one is the new platforms. We are heading in a bad direction. I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon. And it's the fact that motherboard companies have realized that they could fuck us in the ass really hard. And most of us don't care. And you've probably noticed this if you were around the AM3 Plus era. And you were heading to the AM4 eras. And you'll notice that right away. So when I wanted an AM3 Plus platform, which was actually really late in the AM3 generations, it was like 2014, 2015. Even in 2017, I was like, yeah, I think I want an FX processor. And that's just because the motherboard's features back then were fucking insane, and these boards were relatively cheap. We're talking about boards that would cost you $150. I actually thought that paying $150 for a motherboard would get you M.2. Well, I mean, back then that's, debatable, but it would get you 4-way crossfire. It would get you the best VRMs of your platform. It would get you the best DDR3 overclocking of your platform. Well, any RAM overclocking, to be honest. It would get you excellent BIOS flashback stuff, and PS2, USB 3.1, just really the top end of motherboards. And that's just because of FX, AM3 Plus, how it was back then. And then I looked at Z170 and I was like, okay, this is not necessarily reality, but it's not much more expensive. It's 200, 250 bucks for, top end or mid range. A really expensive board was like 450, 500, and we're talking about Canadian, not USD. So it was even more. It was even cheaper in the States. So when AM4 came out, that's when I kind of realized the difference. Buying just a B550 board that did very little overclocking and had some of the worst RAM topology you could imagine was already way over that. It was $250, $300 for the board. You did not even have two PCIe X16 lanes. You had a single card slot. That is fucking abysmal, especially for an overclocker. That is like, I was looking at these boards, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? It's almost as if what happened with X99 and DDR4 had kind of left motherboard manufacturers, but also chip manufacturers, kind of at awe. It didn't matter how many features they added because of how poor the X99 overclocking was, but just in general how poor the single core performance and the DDR4 performance was, that most people just refused to buy it. And so that kind of made an effect on Intel and motherboard manufacturers. And with AM4, they kind of tried to learn their lesson. They're like, okay, we're just not going to have that many features, and the price is going to stay the same. So because of that, we kind of got really cheap boards. If you wanted a really expensive board, yeah, you could, but it would cost you, $600, which was the very top end for motherboards at the time. So we saw this kind of shift, and it only really worsened over the years. The less we saw HEDTs popular, the more we saw consumer boards get some of the features that HEDTs got, but at excess prices. So instead of getting standard stuff at prices that we saw, previous standard stuff at, we actually got the opposite effect. We got standard stuff at $100, $200 more than previous generations. So if you wanted USB 3.2, which is what we call it these days, or whatever, USB 3.2 Gen 1, it would cost you, if we just calculated it, it would cost you a fair bit more than USB 3.1. If you wanted the new M.2 technologies versus previous, SATA connected M.2 or whatever it was called, it'll cost you a fair bit. We can calculate it. It'll cost you a fair bit more than previously. So going in that direction, we're looking at the new generations where we're going to get chips that have exclusive performance over pre-gens, and people are going to be scratching their heads like, how the fuck are we paying $1,000 for a board that can barely cut it in running servers, right? So that's one thing. That's another thing, right? And I think the third thing I want to talk about is just the chips themselves. So we're hearing that both AMD and Intel are going to be coming out with hybrid cores, and I guess that's totally fine. That doesn't really bother me. But the problem is that as a person that respects a lot of cores, what am I getting? Am I getting HEDTs? I don't even think Intel and AMD are gonna make HEDTs at reasonable prices anymore, which they haven't really been in a very long time. If I want to get a 7980 XE, it's gonna cost me an arm and a leg. There has never been a time which I could have bought X299 with my good money, right? And this is not the same as X99. X99, I have a lot of friends who bought X99 when they were at the very tail end of their releases, and it's because they had a lot of supply, and when the demand went to shit, because Ryzen was kicking the butt of X99, that kind of made Intel and motherboard manufacturers realize, like, okay, we're gonna have to change the prices. But nevertheless, with X299, it seemed as though they gave us a lot of features that were, better, definitely, at a premium, but also at a premium, at a larger price, a price that I wouldn't have paid necessarily. And yeah, on the used market, it's pretty much the same thing. Like if I want to buy a 7980 XE, it'll cost me still $500, which is 200 too much, I'd say. Especially for a chip that is very old and isn't very gamer oriented. So yeah, and then we're looking at Cannon Lake, and we're seeing that we're not really gonna get more cores. We're not really gonna get the performance that some of us desires, which me personally is, you know, more like H.264 performance, and not necessarily the same single core performance, but similar enough that if I do buy it and I do overclock it, I will pretty much be competing with consumer. And I don't mind paying a couple bucks extra. I don't mind paying, maybe, less than $500 more. I don't mind that. But the fact that I have to pay a couple $1,000s more, and the fact that I'm not actually going to get anything extra, it's looking really, really, like, dim, I would say, or just sad, just very cynical. I don't know if we're going in a better era than we have been. And to be honest, I was complaining a fuck ton during DDR4. I was probably one of the most cynical and most just like a Grinch, like a DDR4 Grinch. I just fucking hated DDR4. They really fucked us in the ass, and it's not gonna get better. So buckle up, guys. I hope you guys bought some good DDR4 overclocking rigs that will, last you a very, very long time, because DDR5 testing is gonna be rough. I'm calling it right now. It's gonna be rough, and we're not gonna have fun with doing it. We're gonna be sitting on our asses for hundreds of days trying to figure out how to get 100 megahertz out of our fucking $1,000 DDR5 kits. I swear to you. Anyways, guys, hope you guys have a good day otherwise, other than this big ass red pill I just slotched down your throat. Have a good day.